Very good evening. Studio's quite full tonight. We just can't accommodate everybody. We've got an absolutely capacity guest list this evening. James Gregg will join me for part two to round up the whole sporting scene. Just off camera is the Sheffield Stars Sheffield Wednesday man, Chris Holt, with thoughts on the end to the Owls season and recent developments with players being released, big names as well, and players being signed on new contracts, and look ahead to prospects for the rest of the summer. And James Shield, Sheffield Stars Sheffield United man, is here. Neither of us have had any idea at all what we're going to talk about. Re the Blades, we'll have to just put our thinking caps on. And Billy Root is here, a Rotherham United supporter, yeah, of long standing, so I'm told. Have I got my research wrong on that as well?
I like Rotherham. I follow Rotherham.
Yeah, I thought so.
I like Sheffield United as well. I also like Tottenham.
And Tottenham. But you're not really quite, you waver a little bit there, don't you? Billy Root, of course, the cricketer from the famous cricketing family. Start of a new cricket season. He plays for Nottinghamshire and, of course, big Sheffield links. And the Root Academy we'll be talking about, which you've started with brother Joe and your father Matt. And let's kick off with that, shall we? By the way, we had a stunning revelation just as we were about to go on air. Our guy behind the glass there, Phil, just behind the camera as you look, has played at Trent Bridge. I can't believe that. We haven't, have we, James?
No, we certainly haven't. I thought there was other stunning revelations that happened off air, Alan, but we probably best not go into those.
No, they were to do with a famous city abroad that I'm going to actually over the weekend. All right, okay, we might come.
We'll leave it there.
We might come to those in part two. Billy, hot foot back from Nottingham because you've been playing today, haven't you?
Yeah. We've had a 50-over game today in the second team against Warwickshire.
Okay, how did that go?
We had a game today against Warwickshire.
And that's as far as it's going.
But yeah, we came third.
You came third, all right. But you kick off the new county. Well, no, you've already started the county championship season. You played 3 games, 1-2. You're top.
We are, yes. The bowlers have been outstanding, and the batters have chipped in when we needed to. So we're going well.
Bowling conditions at this time of the season, with all the rain we've had.
Yeah, well, more so this year with the winter we've had, which has been. They seem to be getting worse, don't they? Really.
Yeah, they do. Personally, what sort of a start to the season have you had? I've had my eyes just fixated on football. There's so much going off, but you tell me how it's going for you so far.
Yeah, all right. Obviously, there's a lot of watching and cutting oranges up for the lads when I'm not selected, but I'm pretty happy with where my game's at the moment, and I'm hoping just to be, if I'm called upon, I'm making sure I'm ready. Okay,
well, you're obviously hoping that you might be called on tomorrow against Northamptonshire.
Hampshire.
Hampshire, is it? It's close.
Yeah.
Not far off. 13-man squad you're in. You'll obviously be hoping to play. As an all-rounder, I mean, mainly a batsman, but do you see your career progressing as a batsman, or do you think you will be classified as an all-rounder as time goes on?
I think so. It's important for me that I give myself the best chance I can to be up for selection for every format. So if my bowling's going well, then my batting's not so relied upon, and vice versa. So it's just another string to have in your bow, really.
Left-hand bat, but a right-arm bowler. That strange combination. There's quite a few cricketers like that. Brian Close was like that, the ex-Yorkshire captain. I've seen you bowl medium pace, well, fast medium pace actually, for Sheffield Collegiate in the summer. But you're more of an off-break now.
Yeah, well, again, I like to be versatile.
Yeah. So
maybe if conditions suit, one day I'll bowl spin. If the other, I'll have a little go with me whiffers, as they like to call them.
As you say, more strings to your bow. We're going to talk about the Root Academy, because the Michael Vaughan Academy, which goes right back to the start for yourself and Joe, wasn't it, when you were kids growing up? You come from a cricketing family. How big an influence was that on you, and how important was that when your family came to setting up this Root Academy?
Yeah, it was pretty big, that. I mean, when you're a little lad, you just want to go run around and whack it and try and get people out and just have a good time, really. So for us, that grabbed our interest in the game, and we got hooked from there, I guess.
Yeah, the big accent is, I saw an interview with Joe just recently, simply enjoying it. you know, and nothing more to start with. And getting kids into play cricket, which is important.
Yeah, I think it's important for us that the kids can come down and just enjoy playing cricket, and they get to express the way they play naturally and try all the things that they see on telly, try all the fancy Kevin Peterson shots, if you like, and the little scoops and things, and just give them the freedom to sort of play the way they want to play and enjoy their cricket.
I must say, not just because you're here, you're an extremely entertaining and inventive batsman yourself. You know, you can improvise shots, you score very, very quickly. A cavalier batsman. If you've not seen Billy bat, James, I do recommend it.
That's what people like to see in sport, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
A little bit of improvisation and a little bit of sort of artistry and imagination. I thought no matter what the discipline is, that's what people pay to watch.
Got some figures for Billy's career, which are mightily impressive. Well, we'll come to those shortly. I did say at the top of the programme, James, that weren't quite sure what we could discuss re Sheffield United, which is kind of your second team after Rotherham on the local patch. Slight allegiance there for the Millers, who've had a good season, yeah?
Yeah, well, my grandfather, the famous Donald, he's been a Rotherham follower, so I like to keep up with it with him. And obviously Joe, he likes United. And I just like to watch Tottenham. I like the way they play, so I follow those as well.
OK, so when Chris Holt comes in, he's going to be heavily outnumbered tonight. So he's got a job to do for Wednesday. But we did say we weren't sure what we were going to talk about. We were both, of course, in the press room last Saturday talking to Chris Wilder. And while it may have been a surprise to the wider world that he was suggesting that he might even leave Sheffield United, it wasn't a surprise to us, James, was it, on the local front at all? No,
I think this it's been brewing for some time. Certainly, I mean, we probably first became aware of it around January time, didn't we? Sort of just after Christmas. But I think the more you put the pieces of the puzzle together, this has been sort of bubbling away behind the scenes for you know a lot longer than that. So it was no surprise to hear Chris talking as the way he did. I mean, a lot of people might not like it. As he said himself, it might have even got himself into a little bit of trouble with the owners, although, you know, I don't know about you, Alan, but from a personal point of view, I think it was difficult to argue with anything that he said.
Entirely justified, mate. Entirely justified.
And you know what? I actually quite like it because it's one of the big things where football clubs, I think, and footballers, but especially clubs in situations like this, they tie themselves in knots. And I'm not referring to Sheffield United here, but, you know, football in general, they tie themselves in knots by not telling the truth. And it's quite a simple business. It's the lie that always comes back to bite them. So I think to have a manager who speaks as honestly as Chris does, I actually think it's a great thing for football. And I think he was entirely justified in saying what he did.
People might say, yeah, he's in a strong position, which he is, because he carries the support, and quite rightly, of the groundswell of supporters. But when he said he was the only voice coming out of the club, he was entirely right. Amplified by, I'm sure, your experiences this week, certainly amplified by my experiences. I put identical questions, to both the owners this week. I have to say I went into it expecting what happened, which was no response in either case. But it's important those questions are out there, even if they're not answered in a sense, because they can't not address this. And they're so far not taking sides, as Chris Wilder's in, but they are not addressing this issue, which again shouts loudly of how big a problem there is at that football club, doesn't it? Do
you know what? And it's such a shame because, listen, I'm sure the two owners probably admit this as well, but it's almost ridiculous after the 24 months Sheffield United have had, and after the season that they've had in the Championship, where, you know, we're all aware of the figures, bottom six budget. They took the playoff challenge to the penultimate game of the season. You know, it's been a remarkable effort there at that football club. And that's what we should be talking about. We should be sort of praising the club for a brilliant season on the pitch, and we should be talking about how they're going to actually progress and build on all of the good work of the past two seasons off it. And what we're talking about now is obviously a manager who, you know, let's not put it too fine a point, and has got the ump, has quite understandably got that. And I think the worrying thing for me was after that game was, I think in some quarters this has been painted as a sort of a plea for more money and for greater transfer funding. I actually don't think it it's that at all. I think you can read between the lines of what Chris said, and he didn't say this explicitly, but the clues were there. He was talking about a vision for the football club. He was talking about wanting to build it in a way that, you know, or the same way that we've built it over these last 2 years. So I think, listen, there's not a manager on the planet who doesn't want more money to spend. And, you know, I think Chris can probably argue that I've earned the right to spend a little bit more money than I have so far. I'll tell you what I'd say, listen, if it's not there, it's not there. Don't spend it. But I think what this is about for Chris is just that vision and wanting some direction. If the club turned around to him and said, listen, we got actually, do you know what? Cards on the table, we've got no money to spend this summer.
And importantly, tell the supporters that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
don't leave the manager to tell the supporters that.
Yeah. But this is the key thing. He can then plan for whatever amount he's got, whether it's nothing, whether it's $1 million, whether it's 5 million, whether it's 10 million.
Or if you
can start making plans.
David Brooks, okay, there might be 10, 12 million on the table. Yeah, you can have X of that, or preferably you can have all of it. It's at least a starting point. It would be regrettable, obviously.
Well, but this is the problem, because clearly there's not been a vision for next season articulated to Chris behind the scenes. I think if there was, he wouldn't have come out and spoken in the you know in the not only the way that he did, but also the tone that he did, and he actually got quite emotional, I thought.
Yes.
At times during that press conference, which again is understandable because, you know, he's close sort of associations and connections with a football club. So I get that, but, you know, he'll probably hate me for saying this. He's shown he can work on not a lot. You know, he's shown that he can beat the financial odds. I think that's going to become harder next season because, you know, okay, you can possibly look at one of the clubs coming up, but I don't think any of the 3 clubs coming down are financial basket cases like, you know, we've seen in the past. But he's shown he can work on very little money. But he's been able to do that because he's been able to plan. And as you and I know the transfer window doesn't open until next month, but clubs are already putting deals in place. They're already talking to agents. They're already talking to players.
He'd have wanted to know weeks ago.
Yeah.
For either division, because you know, that was open to debate. What do you make of this, looking in from outside, Billy? Any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I just think, why would you tell lies to the fans? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, they just haven't said anything, have they? I mean, basically, it's just become, they put a statement out about the ownership issue, which was quite complicated. And, you know, we had to get our heads around an agreement in 2013 when Prince Abdullah, I know you always write his full name, I looked it up to put it in my column this week, his full name to give him his due. It's a complex issue, but it's been so signposted, Billy, you know, for weeks and weeks and weeks without being able to quote anybody. The manager's dissatisfaction has been evident, and neither party, it would seem, has reacted to that festering. That's what I find amazing. Possibly one party did. Possibly one party has. The other one would appear to have been oblivious to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's important to say, listen, this was probably, and again, I think both owners, certainly one co-owner, has touched on this sort of publicly at certain events around the city. I think it was
Kevin McCabe.
Yeah, I think it was always possibly going to end up this way at some point. And there's never a good time to be in a situation like this. But this is possibly one of the worst. I will say that, especially when you've got a manager who's doing such good work. And, you know, this is a time of year when clubs obviously look to, you know, make changes and look to recruit new managers. But listen, I mean, to be fair to both owners, to be fair to the owner, they've obviously got reasons for wanting to do this. I don't think for 1 minute they've just decided, listen, we're going to have a boardroom spat, we're going to, you know, start sort of wrestling control of the football club just because we're bored and nothing's going on and we quite fancy a little bit of this. Patently ridiculous.
Circumstances, quite clearly, in each case, and they're both holding their ground.
Yeah, and I would suggest both have got different visions slightly for the football club. They probably both want to end up in the same place. In fact, I mean, we know they do, but they've got different ideas clearly about how they think they should get there. But I just think if we can put a man on the moon I don't think it's impossible to sort of, you know, cut through some of this and reach some sort of, I don't think we're going to get a truce, but reach some sort of understanding whereby surely it's best for everybody if we can, listen, we can give the manager this, we can tell the manager this, we can sort of, you know, articulate this vision, as I said, to him.
Some kind of
and he can start planning.
Compromise, interim agreement, because it's in neither of their interests to lose the manager, and let the litigation run its course. You know, but it's sad though, isn't it, Billy? It's a very sad situation.
What would have been the board's expectations at the start of the season?
Well, I think the manager's outstripped them, really, and I think he's gone ahead of, because I think Kevin McCabe was quoted after promotion or just before promotion, Premier League in 5 years. He was seeing it as a step-by-step, long-term thing. In fairness to him, too many chairmen, in some ways, that was admirable and realistic. You know, that instead of saying, oh, we're going to do it next year. But I think Chris Wilder's come in and got something rolling. And he's not prepared to stand still, quite rightly. So I think he's ahead of their schedule, Billy.
Yeah, I think what I can see is that Wilder's come and done a great job, obviously, and I don't think on the budget that he's got, it's come from nowhere. I think he's found something within that squad of players, a method, to get them to play better than they would have done before, or better than what another 14 championship teams.
And he's also recruited superbly well to do that.
Exactly.
And the modus operandi is critical because alongside Kevin McCabe, those two have worked well together. And any threat, which was the other party, by putting a coach on the board, there was clearly a threat to the modus operandi that's been successful, that again will be a concern of the manager.
I think the key for this, and this will be the same in the cricket dressing room, I'm sure, the key to all of this is communication.
Yeah.
I think communication with each other, if that's possible, whether it be directly or through, you know, intermediaries. I think it's communication with the supporters, and I think it's communication with the manager, because, you know, there'll be players actually sat in that dressing room as well thinking, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Because, you know, let's not kid ourselves. This will have actually upset them as well, because, you know, the vast majority of those, Chris Wilder's responsible for bringing to the football club. And I don't think, listen, although, you know, I mean, the players have probably got to take, you know, probably more than half the credit for this, because with all due respect to Chris, they're ultimately the ones who go out there and do it on the pitch and put his plans into action. But they've obviously got a very, very close bond with the staff there.
So that it'll be
to perform and to exceed the expectations like they have.
Yeah,
an unsettled play. Sorry, Bill.
I just think if he's got a team, and I think there's some very nice players in there, but there's no sort of standout superstars in that squad. And with the budget, that a bottom six budget, to get the depth required to get promoted and survive up there as well, you've got to have just more than.
You think
than that. There's got to be some recipe that he's brought in to get them all playing in that way.
The one thing this manager doesn't do is say things for calculated reasons. It wasn't spur of the moment. He meant every word of that. And had he not, I mean, the dread scenario, had he bitten his tongue and we'd all gone off, there was far less chance of anything being resolved. So as far as I'm concerned, he's done the best thing.
Well, I don't think it's a bad thing, because as you say, Alan, it's brought it all out into the open, or certainly focused minds and attention on it. And you would like to think this could possibly bring something to a head. But where I just think it's do you know what? It's a crying shame as well, because, you know, even beyond that first team dressing room and beyond what's going on the pitch, there's been so much good work done at that football club. That the owners themselves will have been partly responsible for as well, because you're looking at the contract situation of players. We're not talking about any of that, and it's such a shame.
And it's such a shame we've reached the end of part one. James, thanks very much. I'm sure this will run and run. We'll have more conversations about this. Bill's staying, Chris Holt's coming in, James is coming in. We'll see you in 5. See you then. Bye.